What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Corporate Bartender. Well, today, my friends, is fantastic. We've got gorillas chasing bananas, motorcycles, big dudes who love to eat, and even Pearl Jam. It's a lot. I know. We've got Pat Taggart on the program, and we are stoked. Who's Pat Taggart? Well, I'm glad you asked. Pat is the founder and CEO of Sky Blue Creative. He's a documentary filmmaker, and he's going to blow your mind with how he has reimagined using corporate video. Let's face it, corporate video kind of sucks. Pat thought so too. So he's brought his own brand of creative storytelling to it, and now you can leverage and supercharge your people function through amazing video. I know I say it all the time, but this conversation is a banger. And you know what, Bartender Nation? I think you're going to dig it. So buckle up, TC Beers, grab your favorite cocktail, and let's get right on into it with Pat Taggart on today's TCB.
Welcome to Sky Team's The Corporate Bartender, where we gather some of the best HR and people leaders to discuss what's happening on the people side of business. Now pull up a stool, belly up to the bar, and join us for The Corporate Bartender.
Welcome, everybody. It's Wednesday. It's your favorite day and mine. You know what that means. It is Corporate Bartender Day. Today is the 17th of April, 2 days after Tax Day, and it is the 193rd time that we have convened this group of amazing people. Today's going to be a fun day. We've got Pat Taggart on the show. He's going to talk to us about using video in ways that will blow your mind and up your people game. We're going to get into that. As I like to say, he's the person that you do not recognize in your Brady Bunch view. But before we get into our conversation with him, just a few housekeeping items to go over. Number one, the travel gods have spoken, and we will be dark for the next 3 weeks. April 24th, May 1st, and May 8th, as Ruby and I got places to go and people to teach. After that, we've got some pretty cool guests lined up. We've got Adele Gambardella and Chip Massey, the authors of Convince Me, High-Stakes Negotiation Tactics to Get Results in Any Business Situation. That's on the 15th. On the 22nd, we have Trisha Shields. She is the CHRO of Navient, and she's all about workplace culture and dealing with this remote workforce that we're all still juggling and trying to figure out. That's on the 22nd of May. And then Robin Bolton is our people leadership and innovation person. I tell this story every time I talk about her because I didn't want to book her as a guest either because I thought, I don't know, we already had an innovation guy and we had like the best innovation guy, Phil McKinney of Cable Labs. If you haven't watched that episode, check that one out. That's an oldie, but a really good one. But they sent me a bunch of podcasts where she talked about innovation on the people side of business. I was like, okay, well, let's talk to Robin Bolton. So we're doing that on the 29th of May.
Do we get to make Michael Bolton jokes?
Yes, and I need to queue up some Michael Bolton on my little sound deck here so I can make those jokes, audio jokes as well. Good idea. Noted. All right. We're going to get into our conversation with Pat. Pat Taggart is the founder and chief creative at Sky Blue Creative. He's a documentary filmmaker, and he takes a completely fresh approach to traditional corporate video, resulting in content that moves the needle for organizations of all sizes and industries. Pat's been doing this for a while, and he's got some really, really cool techniques and tips for making video really useful and really engaging. He's got a couple of stories that he's going to share, and he's going to get into some of these techniques. So let's give him a warm TCB welcome, shall we? We always dance them on, Pat. We didn't warn you, but
I love it.
Dancing.
I have rhythm from like the shoulders up. That's it. And this is perfect. This is the perfect medium for me. That's all I have.
Well, thanks for being here with us today, Pat. Appreciate you.
No, thank you so much for the invite. I love this show, and I love kind of the freewheeling. I love the community forum, and so let's let her fly.
Let's let her fly. All right. Well, we always like to start with a little journey story, because I imagine that when you were a kid, you didn't say, when I grow up, I'm going to rejuvenate corporate video. I'm going to be the corporate video Yoda. What did you want to be?
That's exactly what I said.
Oh, boy. And how did you get here?
Yeah, the dream for me was to be a reporter. And so everything was geared towards being a sports reporter. I saw people on ESPN and I said, that's going to be me one day. And so went to college for 4 years, and all my time was spent getting ready to be a reporter. And I got out and I got a job as a reporter on a very not prestigious high school sports show. And I'd go out every week and I'd do my stories, and I was on top of the world. And then one day my phone rang after 4 months of doing this very non-prestigious job. And the producer said, hey, the show's been canceled. Best of luck. Oh. And I was 22. And I had to ask myself two very important questions. Number one, am I willing to move around to very small markets and make no money and eat ramen noodles to try to work my way up to the top? And number two, the first one was a no. You're very perceptive. Number two was, am I naturally good enough? Because the people that are really great on camera have an ease, and they don't have to think about what they're going to say next. It just kind of comes out. And so what I lacked in talent and willingness to move, I think I had in self-awareness. But I was stuck. I was 22 and I had no career prospects. But every time I would go out and do a story, I'd ask my cameraman, hey man, can I just mess around with your camera for a bit? That was more interesting to me than actually being on the other side. I had $5,000 in the bank. I lived with my parents, and I went home and I told them, hey, I'm going to buy video equipment. And they said, what are you going to do with it? I said, hold on a second. And I called the guy that was my cameraman and I said, hey, how else do you make money? He said, well, I make wedding videos. So I went back downstairs and I told Mom and Dad, I'm going to make wedding videos. They're like, yeah, good luck with that, right? And so I started this little wedding video business. And then I realized, well, nobody's getting married Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I can probably do some work for companies. And so I figured out what people were doing for companies, and we're doing to do corporate videos. And I went out and I made a couple, and it was like, oh man, these are awful. Why are they so bad? Right? Because I'm trying my best, and I'd go in and I'd meet these really engaging people, and we'd have great conversations, and they were very free flowing and comfortable. And I'd put them in front of the camera and it looked like a hostage video, right? Like these people are sweating bullets. They look scared to death. And I'm like, I have to figure this out or I am going to be without a career once again. And to me, it came down to two things. First was get rid of the scripts. Nowhere else in business do you script yourself. Imagine going into a meeting and hanging cue cards up over the person's head that you're speaking to. They will think that you're absolutely crazy. But for some reason, when we find out we're making a video, we feel like we have to script ourselves. And then the second thing was stop making people stare into the lens of a camera, because for most people that have never done it before, it's a very terrifying thing. So having people shift their eyes, as I'm doing now, about 6 inches off to the side, and just asking them questions and engaging them in a conversation totally changed the vibe of the content. And that's kind of dictated the work that I've done for half a lifetime. I'm 44 now, and I was 22 back when I was doing it really, really poorly.
Wow. So, I mean, two really simple tricks, right? I mean, we all know about red light fever. You see that red light on the camera and you freeze, or you try to remember the words that you wrote down. You know, it's like doing keynotes. I always tell people there are 3 keynotes, right? There's the one you write, the one you practice, and the one that comes out of your face. And usually that's the best one. But in a video environment, you know you can do it over again, right? I mean,
exactly.
I spent a lot of time as a studio musician and as a studio engineer, and I can't tell you how many hours of my life I wasted recording the same guitar lead over and over and
That's
over.
Right.
And it didn't get better. It got worse over time. And we had to, most of the time we'd have to quit and like, let's just come back tomorrow. So how did you get people to embrace this, right? Because script is like a blanket. It's like an anchor. Like if I don't have that, I'm even more freaked out about doing this video.
Yeah, the early days, we would have to roll with their scripts. And then I would say, hey, do you mind if we put the scripts down now that we got it? We got it in the can. Great job. It wasn't a great job. It was an awful job. But I would just say, do you mind if we put the scripts away? We're done. We're ahead of schedule. Can I just ask you some questions? And then I'd wind up cutting both. Say, what do you think? And be like, oh my gosh, I like the second one so much better. It's like, yeah, because that's you. The first one's not you. The first one, you know, is somebody moonlighting as a script writer or God forbid, the legal team, depending on what industry you're in, right? And oh my goodness, like the difference when you just let the pressure off somebody and let them be themselves. And, you know, chances are they only have to be good 10 to 20% of the time. Where else in the world is 10 to 20% a massive victory, right? You can't, if you go to work tomorrow and you're only good 10 to 20% of the time, you're probably going to get fired.
Unless
in video, that's
baseball.
Yes. Even then, if you're hitting 100 or 200, Eric, you're not going to have long to live. So for us, you know, a lot of the stuff we're doing, if we're doing a recruiting video, it might be 2 minutes long. You know, if we're going to interview 5 or 6 people, we might come home with 30 or 40 minutes of content. Do the math, right? Like you're just looking for those nuggets and everybody kind of fits in like a puzzle. Man, people should not be stressed. Like my whole job is just making people comfortable. It's never telling people what to say. The story's there.
Yeah. So are there any other reasons? So we got this sort of pasty hostage video. I love that, that phrase. And people that are stumbling over their scripts. Why else doesn't traditional corporate video engage? Why does it not work?
Well, I think that people's bullshit meter is like better now than ever because we're so used to watching raw, unscripted content on social media, right? And so when you see something that's scripted, you ultimately feel like you're being manipulated. And so what people want is truth. And what I found is that the closer you get to the front line, the higher that bullshit meter is. And so like if you're trying to recruit frontline people and you're feeding them canned scripted content, good luck. Like they can see through that from a mile away. Ultimately, like what people want, if you're talking recruiting, is like what they're looking for is, okay, I know you're going to pay me. I know you're going to give me benefits. What type of culture am I joining? Right? Am I going to fit in here? And so what you want is honesty. You don't just want the C-suite to come on and say, oh, this is a great opportunity. You want to hear from people that are doing the type of job that you're going to do. And then if it's on the branding front, just tell me the story. Tell me how you're different. Don't tell me what you do. Tell me how you're different. And the best way to do that also is just conversationally. So really, it sounds so simple. The dirty secret of video in general for companies of any size, any industry, is that the more you prepare, the worse your video is going to be.
Wow.
Because again, the story already exists.
Yeah.
I recently was interviewed for a thing that it's going to be a video that they cut together. And yeah, they wouldn't give us the questions until like an hour before. And then it was just more to sort of get prime the pump a little bit, which is just a little freaky, but it was for that reason, right? They didn't want you coming in saying, you know, this is the answer to that question. It was not looking at the camera. It was looking at the person that was interviewing. And yeah, it was notably different than, you know, a scripted, canned, rehearsed kind of thing. And
I'm sure you've done both, right, Lori? Like you've been on the other side of it.
Yeah, I just hope I said something reasonably intelligent that they can cobble together.
Well, editing is a magical medium. Yeah, editing is a...
I'm sure Pat has stories of videos that he made amazing through the magic of editing.
Yeah, music is so powerful, right? Pacing so powerful, and people make the mistake of thinking, well, we have to script it because we need to get 100% of the story. What if we miss a detail? And that's not true. Number one, these videos very rarely exist in a vacuum, right? Like no one's ever going to see a video and you can't get any more information. There's typically always kind of supplemental information, whether it's on a website and there's text there or whatever it might be. There's a call to action. So you can always kind of find out more. But the other thing is we have text to rely on. So you have to figure out kind of what's the point of this video. Are you looking to educate people? Are you looking to make them feel something? If you're looking to make them feel something, you don't need to overwhelm them with information. Really what you want them to do is make them feel really good about you and your company, and you want them to want to learn more.
Are there essential elements to telling a story? Like what makes for a good story, Pat?
Yeah, people, and I'm at the risk of being repetitive, people have to feel something when they're done. So not every story has emotion where it's going to tug at your heartstrings. The perfect story has humor and it's going to pull at your heartstrings. Not every story has that. The perfect stories really do. The key element is truth and authenticity. And so we were just filming for a company the other day. It's a door and glass company, and they have this like wild culture. wild culture. Like the way that they described it was, hey, like we know what we have to do on the work side and what metrics we have to hit to play hard. And, every Friday it's beer and bourbon. And they said, hey, listen, at what point during the shoot do we have the gorilla come out and chase the banana? And I was like, what does that
mean?
What are you talking about? Sure enough, second interview, we have somebody in front of the camera, and exploding out of the door comes a guy dressed in a banana, and a gorilla chases him. And the woman on camera, like they barely react. And I was like, just another day, huh? And she goes, yeah, well, the scary thing is it kind of is, right? Like, and that's who they are. And so what I said to them was like, please just be yourself, because what you're trying to do is attract people that are going to love that culture. And when you're talking recruiting, a lot of times the mistake people make is they try to paint this perfectly rosy picture. And they're just like, we're so desperate for people, like come one, come all. It's so expensive to replace people, and churn is so expensive, and it's such a pain in the ass that like you might as well give people the information that they want and be very, very clear about your culture so that you're going to attract the people you want. You're going to repel the people that you don't, and you're not going to have to replace them in 2 months.
Yeah,
I want to work at the place.
That's so key with one of the things I was talking with Leah, who's on the call here about, is our orientation and onboarding process. And we're looking to mix up the medium a little bit, especially since we have, remote employees and hybrid this and that, and trying to schedule people in a room together is just really hard. And so how do we, mix it up with something that isn't a big yawner to learn about, the process for vetting contracts with the legal team, and but I mean that authenticity of this is what it's really like, because the worst thing is to set some picture and then they realize 2-3 weeks later that was all a bunch of crap. All right.
Yeah.
We don't act like that at all. It's very disengaging. So
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just had a company that retained us a little bit ago. They work out of airports. So all goods that come to the airport get delivered to them. They screen it and deliver them to the vendors. They were having no trouble attracting people. They were having trouble keeping people. And it came down to one reason. The job was more physical than they were explaining to people. They would say, hey, it's physical. And people were like, yeah, okay. And then they get there and they'd be like, oh man, this really is physical. And so they brought us on to kind of film a day in the life. Right. And to talk to people about the job. And the video is more like, hey, this isn't for you. If you don't like to wake up early, we start at 4 a.m. You don't want to do physical work. If you don't want to work holidays, right. It wasn't, hey, this is the greatest job ever. We got to that at the end, all the things that make it wonderful. The video led with all the reasons why you wouldn't want this job, because they were having a terrible time retaining people. And it was just, they were getting the wrong people. Now they will attract people with that video now. Because there are people that want to do physical work. A lot of people in the video said, unprompted, hey, I don't go to the gym anymore. This is my gym. And so there's people that would love that, but you just have to attract them and let them know.
Work here and save $20 a month.
Yeah. One guy dropped like 30 pounds in his first 3 months because he had a desk job prior to that. And he was really moving every single day. And so, every job's right for somebody. You just have to be really clear about what it entails.
Yeah.
I love the idea of being able to convey an accurate representation of your culture in these small little nuggets. I know that when we talked earlier, Pat, and I won't remember this whole story, but I remember it was a story that I wanted you to tell about an executive who, he was a large man. And
yes,
there you go. You know what I'm asking about here, because that was a really cool story about his sort of journey in that whole video process.
We'll call him Rich because that was his actual name, but we'll leave out the company. So Rich was the COO of a large multinational public company that I had the great fortune to do a lot of work for over several years. And when I got there, I was speaking to some of the HR leaders, and they said, our leaders, our executives are so wonderful, but we've gotten so big that a lot of people just don't really know them on a personal level anymore, especially people outside of this area. I wish there was a way we can show them. And I said, well, can you get us 15 minutes with each of them one day? And they said, well, yeah, sure. We'll schedule it around a meeting. I said, just if we can get them in a room for 15 minutes, let me just talk to them, nothing to prepare. So we're talking to them all, and we talk a little bit about work and then a little bit about life. And then Rich comes in the room. He's a very intimidating guy. He's not a natural smiler. His natural look's kind of a frown. And he's probably, 6'4", about 400 pounds. He was a big guy, right? And so people were afraid of Rich. So Rich sits down and we're talking, hey, what's a COO do at a public company? And he's just kind of droning on. And then we get to personal life and he starts talking about how he rides a motorcycle through Arizona. That's where he lives. Boom, there's a connection point, right? There's frontline employees in New York and in Canada and New Mexico that are like, I ride a motorcycle. Now you have something you can relate to. If you're making $18 an hour in a warehouse, super hard to relate to a COO on a work front. You can totally relate in personal life. Kids are a great equalizer. And then I said, well, what else do you like to do? And he said, well, obviously I like to eat. And he let out this belly laugh, man. And all of a sudden you saw this huge grin. And I'm like, man, there's the magic. And I said, well, what do you like to eat most? And he goes, man, you don't get this big being picky. And he was just roaring, laughing. And all of a sudden, like all these comments came in. One of my biggest pieces of advice is don't disable comments on your video. That is like such a fearful mentality to have. We never disabled comments in that public company for 6 years. We had 2 negative comments, two kind of inappropriate comments. They were both by the same disgruntled person, and we were able to flag them and get rid of them pretty quickly. But people from all over the world, not just the States, were writing in, hey, I got the same bike as you, or hey, man, I love food too. And all of a sudden, you have this guy that makes whatever he makes, and you have a frontline employee where they would never have anything in common. Now there's a connection point. Now when they see each other at conferences, it's no longer, I'm afraid of that guy. It's let me go up to him and tell him I really love this video and I love food and I love to ride motorcycles. And so, man, if you're a leader, just let people into your world a little bit, be vulnerable, be honest, be self-deprecating. Self-deprecation is one of the most powerful tools on the planet. Don't be afraid to laugh at yourself. It doesn't undermine your leadership or your authority. It's only going to earn trust and loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
I love that story because I think we've all seen those executive team video vignettes, the 1 minute of the person talking about themselves or their jobs. And, again, hostage videos, they're just dry, boring. They say, platitudinal things about the company. It's all, our company is baseball and motherhood and apple pie, and it is a wonderful place to work. Belly laughs.
Yeah.
What's that, Lori?
And just buzzwords. It doesn't add value. It's just words that
it's totally useless to everybody, to you, to the people watching it. And it probably took an incredible amount of time to plan all that nonsense.
Yep.
I love that you said belly laugh and howl with laughter. Because that, for me, that's a relatability piece, right? And I was looking back at our notes from our pre-conversation, and you said a thing that I thought was just, poignant. You said heart and humor. That's life.
That's life. Yeah. Again, people want honesty. They want you, they want you to be genuine, and they can tell, right? And so you're recruiting. People want to go work with real people. They want to go work for a company that's doing something, a company that means something. If you paint a perfect picture, people know the world's not perfect, right? So laugh about it, be honest about it. None of us are doing perfect work, but if they know you're doing your best and you're trying to make a difference, and they're not expected to come in and be perfect, you're going to get great people.
This all aligns with what we all geek out on about just brain science and how we're wired, and that we're inherently wired for connection, first of all. So we're always looking for any kind of common ground. But then there's also just how our brains process information, and we feel things before we decide, before we make choices, before we engage our logical thinking. And so if you can connect with somebody on that emotional level, then it shifts so many things, right? And you can have the opposite effect, right? If you bore someone, or you scare someone, or you intimidate someone, right? That's the path that it sets them on. So
you're totally right, Laura. You know what a great way in my experience is to create connection immediately is to tell your underdog story. And every company has one. And it's an opportunity that most people don't take, because when we get to a certain level, we become the industry leader, or we hit $1 million or $5 million or $10 million or $100 million in revenue. That's who we are, right? That's never going to be as interesting as where you came from, ever. And so we recently did some work for an IT company, very dry, right? Great guy. Entrepreneur's a great guy. Subject matter was very, very dry. The first 6 seconds of the video were magic.
Mhm.
I said, take me back to the beginning. Where did it come from? He said, where did it start? It started with a laptop and a prayer in 1989. And he said it with like this twinkle in his eye and this smile on his face.
Mhm.
You could turn it off right there, right? You've already won loyalty and fans there by saying that. And the truth is we're all underdogs, right? I mean, any company, we shouldn't be here. If you have a company and you've made it and God forbid you're profitable and people want to work for you, you are an anomaly, right? What are the decisions that you made where your family and friends thought you were crazy if you're the founder or one of the folks that were an early employee? You know, what was that stroke of luck that came along where it could have been the breaking point for the company? If you can connect with that, there's so much power to be drawn from it. Think about all those years that New England Patriots were in the Super Bowl. Who was rooting for them outside of New England?
Not me.
Nobody. Everybody was rooting for the underdog. They had no connection to that team most likely either.
Right.
But people root for underdogs. I can show you
Tom Brady. So there's
and they hate Tom Brady. Yes.
Tom Brady.
Yeah, I mean, the underdog story is grossly underutilized. And so if you're looking to create some, not only for customers, but for employees, think about what you can do to be able to tell that story. Think about the loyalty you can create internally with people and how they were going to want to share that with their family and friends and say, I never knew I was working for a company that started, you know, with one used truck in whenever. I just did a 100-year story for a company. I've driven by their trucks a million times on their road, had no idea where they came from because I just figured they've always been the biggest player, right? Started with a used truck in 1924.
Wow.
And a guy trying to support his family. And now they've been around for 100 years and employ thousands of people. But that's not where it started. And that's not the most interesting thing where they are now. It's where they started.
How do you pull out those nuggets? Like I've been a part of a lot of, you know, sort of corporate culture activities, video shoots, website redos, blog posting, and people aren't always in touch with what ends up being the most compelling thing, right? They have their talking points that they've been saying in elevators, in hotels across the world. And that's usually not the thing that's the most compelling or the hookiest. How do you draw that out?
Yeah. One big distinction is that unscripted doesn't mean unprepared. So day of, we're unscripted. For me, there's a lot of work that goes in ahead of time, learning the company, learning the culture, being very clear on our objectives and asking a whole lot of questions to make sure that we're set up for success. And so I get a lot of that from whoever I'm speaking with. Sometimes it's HR leaders and a CEO, founder, entrepreneur. Sometimes it's the folks from marketing. Sometimes it's a group. And so we really want to say, okay, what does success look like for a video? And I assume a lot of people that do my job do this as well. What's success look like? And then I say, okay, let's work backwards. What type of conversation do I have to have with people to be able to achieve this, to get these sound bites? And so sometimes I'll ask people the same question 3 times. Sometimes I need people to smile and they're not. So I'll smile at you maniacally until you smile back at me. Sometimes I want to get you a little bit more emotional. So I'm going to drop the tone of my voice and I'm going to slow my cadence a little bit. And I've always believed that as an interviewer, you have to give what you want in return. And so I'm never going to hold a list of questions and ask questions because that's lazy. I should have done that work in advance and I should know what I'm trying to get from there because it's very easy. It's very hard to make somebody relax and get them conversational if they're staring at you holding a big sheet of paper where they know there's questions on the other side and they're not quite sure what they are.
Yeah. So we're creating compelling video. It's full of heartwarming and touching messages. How do we get people to watch it? Like, where do we put this stuff? Like, if I'm just Johnny HR person at XYZ company, and you're going to come in and make this awesome series of videos that are going to capture hearts and minds, what do I do with it?
I'm going to answer your question with a question. Say we went out on the streets of your town. I know you're in Colorado right now, and we found 10 people to give us 2 minutes of their time. And then we gave them a choice. You can either read this whatever this is for 2 minutes, or you can watch this. How many of you would bet the balance of your bank account for a chance to double up that at least half of them would say, I prefer to read?
Oh, that they prefer to read.
Overwatch. How many people? I've asked this, I get a chance to speak in front of rooms a decent amount. And I've never had a single person raise their hand and say, yeah, I think at least half the people would prefer to read.
I know I'm in the minority in this, because when I'm trying to read news articles on like Apple News or whatever, I'm like, I don't want to watch the video. Just want to read it. Like,
you're the first then, Eric. You're the first.
I'm standing here in an airport and I don't have headphones on. I would just like to read it. I'm not a lip reader, but I know I'm in the minority because I know everybody wants to watch it.
Yeah. And then the next question is, all right, take a look at how you communicate with your employees and your customers now. Is it all text or mostly all text? And so if we agree that when given the choice, people would rather watch than read, but we're only giving them text, there's a huge opportunity there. What happens ultimately is people say, I get it. We got to make video. People want to watch, not read. And then we create killer content. And where do they put it? They put it on their About Us page. We can't put it on the homepage of our website. That's sacred ground. Wait a second, though. I thought everybody wants to watch and nobody wants to read, right?
Exactly.
So the short answer is, if you're going to spend the time to create it and you watch it and you say, yeah, that's us. There's no text on the planet that can tell the story the way that video can. Put it in a place where people are going to see it. Put it on the homepage of our website. If you're recruiting, put a video out on Indeed or wherever it is you recruit on your career page, right? Front and center on LinkedIn, front and center on your socials, and the signature line of everyone's email that's customer facing in your organization. Put it places where people are going to see it. It's not rocket science. But if you're going to go through the trouble of creating it, don't hide it.
I love that. I'm an introvert. I'm a Disc C. I'm a Myers-Briggs INTJ. And we did a website rebrand a couple years ago, just a complete redo top to bottom. And we went out to Portland and worked with a company that was like all-in company. They did the videos, they did the website, they did the graphic design, they did the whole thing. And they wanted to make this video. And I thought, okay, well, I don't want to be on video, but I'll do it. The video is pretty amazing. It sits front and center on our homepage. Like, you go to skyteam.com, it is above the fold. It is the first thing that you see, and it auto plays. So
it's so good.
If you hit that website, you are watching that video. Now, you probably have to, hit the audio button so you can hear it. But you see it, and it is like a movie trailer. It is captivating. And I wasn't sold on it in the beginning, but wow. I mean, Lori, what were you going to say about it?
Just that it's unexpected. It's kind of, it's a great blend, I think, of really the three of you, Eric, Ruby, and Orak, their third stool, leg of the stool, authentic, right? Like what they're really like, but sort of big and fun. And they did a great job.
Because we work in leadership development, and that's boring. It's very, business booky, very dry. And we're not boring, dry people. And we say fuck a lot. So we try to convey that in that video. I wasn't allowed to drop one, but
you're not.
I think there's one in some video somewhere in the site, because it was really important to me to get one in there.
No judgment. No judgment here.
You're from Philly. That's real close to Jersey. You can't judge me.
Yeah, no. Listen, you can't be drinking a beer on your own podcast and then be restricted by what you can say, sir. You created the culture.
Hey, I don't have a gorilla chasing a banana here, so
I'm going to send you the video when we hang up. It's very entertaining. Yes, so, very entertaining.
So just a quick question. We've been talking a lot about using video for talent acquisition. And is there any area of that workflow that we haven't talked about yet? Like, what else should I be thinking about as the head of talent acquisition going, okay, we need to up our game, and video is going to be one of the elements by which we do that. Is there anything that we haven't covered that they need to know?
Yeah, training videos that don't suck. So, and you can do these for free. Like, find your rock stars that do amazing work, take out an iPhone and film them doing their work at what makes them good at it, right? Like, it's so simple and so easy, and most of us just don't do it for whatever reason. But it's much better for someone to learn by watching one of their peers than it is by having somebody in leadership say, hey, do this or do that, right? Because most of the time leaders don't really know the right way to do it. They know how to lead people, right? But the people that are doing the work know how to do it. And you have superstars, you have A players. Film your A players doing what makes them A players.
That's great.
I love that.
And it's free, super free. And I remember, before we go, I told you that story about converting the newsletter. Don't let me forget to tell you that, because I know you love that one. Yeah,
that was fantastic.
Whenever it fits in.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we should just do that, because newsletters are the bane of my existence. I read 2 of them, and one of the guys whose newsletter I read stopped doing it because he said, I hate doing a fucking newsletter.
Amen.
And that's Mark Manson, the subtle art of not giving a fuck guy. And now he does these lessons a couple of times a month, which I think are great. Things for you to think about. You can consume it in like 2 minutes. And I read the Tim Ferriss newsletter because I've gotten so many usable things out of that, from tech gadgets to poetry to things to think about. So I read those 2. But before my feet hit the floor most mornings, I lay in bed and I do this.
Yep.
Delete, 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 because overnight I will have gotten probably 20 newsletters stroke marketing emails from people who send me newsletters. Yeah. So I don't like them. I don't find them to be useful outside of the 2 examples that I cited. And could I find use out of more of them if I took time to spend with them? Maybe. Sure. Mm-hmm. But there's just so many. The volume is really high. So let's talk about this. What do you do if you want to reach people with your compelling message, but your newsletter isn't getting the traction that it needs to get?
Let me tell you what we did at it was a waste company. And so people that were creating this were writing about waste.
Fantastic.
Wasn't terribly compelling. Nobody was very excited about it, but it's just what they did, right? Every quarter they had to deliver a newsletter. And so we said, is there another way that we can do this? Can we kind of rethink this newsletter? Because we had the open rates and they weren't very good and nobody was reading it, but you create a newsletter. So we said, why don't we create a news show instead? Oh. And the CEO said, well, hey, don't ditch the newsletter first. Do the news show. Let's see how it goes. So we painted the wall in the HR conference room green, and we held auditions for anchors from people in the building. And we had a line out the door, people coming in, reading off our little iPad teleprompter, right? And we held our first news show, and it was by no means perfect. And people loved it because it was different and we had fun with it. And then something really cool happened. People from all different cities and all different countries started sending in videos of their location. They never sent in stories to the newsletter, but now that there was something visual, they wanted to be represented. So we started getting all these incredible stories. And what it did, aside from increase engagement by 400% over the open rate of the newsletter, is it made the company feel smaller. And that was our biggest objective, because when you have multiple locations and you're separated geographically, people think that the entire company is their task and that this is what we do. We do this one thing, and they didn't feel like they were part of something bigger. And that's purpose. And purpose is so critical to building and maintaining a great culture. Mm-hmm. And this news show didn't do it all, but it certainly helped, because people are like, oh, that's super cool what we're doing there. I'm a part of that. I'm a part of this, right? It's not, I don't just like process this waste here. Okay, here's the downstream effect. Here's what we're really doing. Mm. And so that was super cool. And it didn't cost any more than the newsletter, right? And so I would take a look at the different processes that you have, the training that you're doing, right? How you recruit, just take a look at everything that you do and say, can video help? Can video either replace or supplement what we're doing here? And my guess is that once you start using it, you'll start to find more purpose for it. And yeah, are there times that you want to get a professional to help you with certain pieces? Yeah, there is. Is there a lot that you can do on your own? Absolutely. The cell phone in your pocket is better than a professional video camera that I bought for $10,000 less than 10 years ago.
Crazy.
Think about that. It's this big, it's in the drawer behind me, and I'll never ever use it again, and I can't sell it. It's completely defunct. It was $9,000 less than 10 years ago, and it breaks my heart.
Now
Should've
it's
sold
art.
Now it's
Now
a
it's
paperweight. Yes. I'm going to do like Office Space one day and take it out and just beat it up with a baseball bat. Yeah. That's the only reason I still have it, and I haven't done that yet, is because I bring it out as like a prop when I do live presentations, just to convince people, because people say all the time, like, I can't do video on my own. All I have is a cell phone. It's like, man, if you knew how good that cell phone is, you can go on Amazon and buy a microphone and a light and watch a couple of YouTube videos, and you can produce content that is going to be absolutely wonderful. Just get an intern or someone to do some basic editing for you, like who, not how, right? If you don't know how to edit, that's somebody else that would love to cut for you. But man, we should all be media production companies because we have the tools now.
I mean, that was a lesson that we learned from COVID, right? And I credit Morag with this vision in that moment, because when that happened, it was the next week. So it was Friday the 13th of March 2020 when everything shut down, and it was the next week, and we were talking because our business was 95% fly to a place, get up in front of a room full of people, right? Yeah. It was 5% this. And she said, this is going to last more than a year. And we were like, you're insane, whatever, right? And she told me, she said, we need to learn how to be digital content creators today. So she told me, she said, I want you to go buy everything we need.
Because it's going to sell out.
It was not an insignificant amount of money, but I'm glad I did it, because I bought, big DSLR camera and light rigs and a whole rack of audio processing and fancy microphones and all of that. And 2 weeks later, you couldn't buy a $50 webcam except on
a case of toilet paper.
Yeah, that too. Right. So
I know you're totally right.
So it's why I do this. It's why I learned Final Cut Pro. It's why, right? We do those things. So I totally get your point. We should all be doing that. Can you do too much video content?
Yeah. If you annoy people, of course, like, it has to be purposeful. I think you can do too much of anything. You have to read the room. You can talk too much too.
Yeah.
You can send too many emails. Start slow, right? Start slow. Don't go from 0 to 100 right away. Try one out, ask for feedback, right? And iterate. It's no different than any other medium.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to allow time for questions if anybody has questions, because I know Ruby always has questions. I've seen her taking copious notes, and Allison is like competing with Ruby for taking the most notes. I've been watching her too. So I'm willing to bet that there's a question or two in there. So I want to open it up to questions before we ask Pat where to find him and get on to our end of show ritual.
I was looking to see if Allison was going to cover you. there's a couple things that are like really resonant for me. Like when you just started, Pat, talking about, you said get rid of scripts for video and stop like staring into the lens. It made me think about that process when we were recording our commercial, I guess, our video that goes on the front of our website. We had a script and it was so hard for me. My anxiety was probably the highest it's been in 5 years, sitting in front of that camera, reading a script that I didn't know we were supposed to learn, and trying to deliver these lines over and over again. So I just, I
was
love
it stuff you knew too, Ruby? Like, was it stuff that you like? Could you have talked about it all day if you didn't have to know the exact words to say?
Kind of.
Was it about your company?
It was written in my voice for me. So
Okay.
kind of, but yeah, it was about our company. But I also know, like, in facilitation, everything you said is so true too, right? Our authenticity and our honesty and speaking off the cuff and not speaking about notes and being able to pull stories that, like, I've seen it just connect with people in such a deep way. I think that's one of the gifts that we have, and something that is more of an, it's more of an expertise, actually. It's being more simple and honest is the thing that people connect with. So that just really resonated with me, having those two kind of different experiences. And this sort of phrase that I've been playing with, I think I've said it here on the show before, is deep presence unleashes your authentic gifts. And so everything that you've said today about video, just this feels so true to me. And I love the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's really not complicated. I'm not a very deep person. I'm not a massively intelligent person. And I also don't try to ask people like really like deep,
Trick
prying questions. It's just ask people simple questions. Like if you're trying to recruit, ask them what attracted you here and why do you stay? Tell me about it, right? Like what makes this place different or special? It's not hard. But that's where the magic comes from. And what I found over time, the best question you can ask people is at the end, I always say, hey, you know this place so much better than I do. What did I miss? Was there anything you really wanted to talk about?
Especially
and inevitably
when you have them talking, right? When they're got the juice, they're all like, this is a cool place. Yeah.
Because like if I assume that I asked them all the best questions, I'm like, okay, we're done. Chances are I left the very best thing on the table, and they're going to be like, okay, I'm done. Yeah, let me move on with my day. But if you give them that open door at the end, usually that's usually their best soundbite, and it's because it's from them and it's totally genuine, not prompted by me.
Love it. So oh yeah, sorry, go Allison.
Oh, it's Leah, but
sorry.
I know it's hard because I'm invisible. But how do you balance, a training video or informational video specifically for employees that like connecting with them? Is that as important, or just like get to the point and like make it end as soon as possible and be the least painful? Like, how do you?
It's a great question.
Kind of manage that.
Yeah. It's a great question. I never go into a video saying it's going to be this long. Leah, I think content should always dictate runtime. Like people will watch as long as the content is relevant, but it should never be a second longer than it needs to be. So content will tell you how long your piece should be. Tomorrow, we're actually doing training content. So it's an internal video. It's for a company that delivers uniforms and linens for the medical industry. And
hot, sexy.
Yes. Boom. Their challenge is they have drivers that go out and service their customers. And some of them aren't owning the entire customer experience. So somebody will say, hey, like billing's screwing up. And they'll say, oh, call billing. The other ones will say, I'll take care of it. So what they want to do is they're going to take the people that have really good NPS scores and they're going to have me talk to them. There's 7 of them to find out what are they doing to own that entire customer experience. And then we're going to create a video to help educate people. I have absolutely no idea how long it's going to be, but I'm just going to talk to them about, hey, obviously you're a superstar. You're an A player. You have a great NPS score. Tell me about how you interact with your customers, right? You ever get complaints? If you do, somebody complains about billing, what do you say? And so I think if you stick to, hey, there's a story here to tell, let's tell it as briefly as possible without kind of draining it of all its character and its color. And then whatever it winds up being, that's what it is.
What if they're not interested in the topic?
Well, I assume there's going to be a lot of people that go in here and are like, I would love to do some more interesting things with my day than watch a video about how to improve my NPS score.
Right.
But if they genuinely don't want to get better and they've been identified as people that can benefit from this, then they're probably not the greatest fit for the company, right?
Yeah.
There's plenty of other jobs for them to do. But you would hope that you've created a culture where people want to thrive and do better And if you're kind of given the keys to that from your peers and saying, hey, if this is what I do, if you do this, it's probably going to work out. You don't want that, probably time to move on.
Mm-hmm.
What if you called it, Leah? If you were just like, hey, I don't know what the topic is and if it would be irreverent, but we know you don't want to be here. Maybe not saying,
Great
like just
idea.
like calling it.
Love that.
And so their defenses go down and be like, yes, you're right. Okay, fine. I'll do your fucking thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it comes down to. I'm like, let's make this the least painful for both of us, because it's painful for me to see you disengaged as much as it is for you to hear me talk. So,
and that should never have to be in the video. Again, these things don't exist in a vacuum. So these people are going to get brought into a room and they're going to be shown the video. Whoever's there facilitating should be like, hey guys, like, I understand there's probably things you'd rather do with your day. Here's the challenge we're facing at the company. I'm hoping you can all help me. I'm hoping we can all work together to try to figure this out. Just, listen to what your peers had to say that are doing this right. And let's figure out how we can all get on that same page.
Well,
and then, boom.
I think there's a lot of, be clear about what's in it for them. Because that people are inherently self-centered, just as a kind of human survival of the fittest sort of way. So
yeah, this is a portion of their comp, Lori. I just found out this is a portion of their comp. I just found out is that NPS score is factors into their specific comp. So that should help from a motivation standpoint a little bit, I hope.
And I think Leah, sorry, I keep jumping in. Leah, I have been taking a lot of notes so we can follow up, but I think it's a balance of what, like for an orientation kind of thing, what do they need to know to feel super stoked they took this job versus a procedure manual for how to deal with something when they encounter it. And so it's here's where you can find all of the deep details to whatever applies as you encounter it, but meet some people that will help you along the way, or something along those lines. So I think we have to get more creative about what's our purpose for that opening experience for them, knowing that, and there's some compliance reasons why we have to make sure that people know certain things, but that, how can we deliver that in a different combination of ways?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Information, especially if you're trying to mix in some emotion or really inspire, a lot of times information is kind of the enemy of emotion. And so when you're creating a video, I always tell people that, like, are you trying to inspire people? Yeah. I was like, all right, let's leave out all those details. Like we'll give them to them some other way, because if you start hitting them with all that, then, that whatever you were making them feel is gone away. And now they have to be like, oh, I need to write that down. And so be really clear on the purpose of the video. It's educational. That's one thing. That's my job tomorrow.
Everybody needs to know the why, right?
For sure.
I would say that, like, Leah, to what you said too, it's leading with empathy, and Pat, to what you said, that that vulnerability. Our leaders hate taking integrity trainings too, but it has to be done. And it's that thing of, like, you need to neutralize the goals of the company so that we all know where we're going. Again, this would be folded into the why, but that vulnerability, that empathy of, like, I don't want to do this either, but I blocked half the day and I busted it out and it wasn't that terrible. Like, just go knock it out, and it's more like, but we all got to do it. So why not just, I think that empathy piece is huge. I'll also say, Pat, what really resonated with me was, and Lori, you can judge me on this later, but the self-deprecation. So, and Laura, you never judge me. I didn't mean that. But there are people that take it to a fault, and it's a bad look. They don't have confidence in themselves, or it's too much self-deprecation. So there's, like, that right balance. But I will say that I recently went through an experience where I got to go on a trip with, like, senior levels that are way higher than me. And the tippy top of my department was there. I never get, like, FaceTime with her. We talked about Pearl Jam. She wants to do a road trip for, like, the Pacific Northwest shows. I never would have seen her as, like, a Pearl Jam fan. She's a stuffy suit wearing person that has it all together all the time. And I got to tell you, huge game changer for me and my relationship with her, what I lean on her for, because I saw her as like a human being, which of course she's a human, but like she's relatable now.
It was your rich moment. Motorcycles.
Yes, it was exactly that. Yes.
That's so cool,
jamhead.
Allison. That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, you're a title until you allow yourself to be a person in the eyes of the people that work for you, right?
Yeah.
You'll just
I got a
always be
chance to tell her after that trip, and she was like, "That's the best thing I've heard all month." Like, they don't
yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, it takes courage. You have to be self-assured as a leader and confident in yourself and secure in your position to be able to do it. A lot of the people that never let you in are people that aren't secure, and the people that think they have all the answers. And man, the best thing you can ever say as a leader too is, "I don't know. What do you think?" And I had a leader do that to me for like 6 months, and I'm like, "Man, this guy's dumb." And I realized, no, this guy's really smart. He knows all the answers. He just wants me to be able to feel like I have some autonomy. And sometimes he'd let me run with things that he probably shouldn't have let me run with. But it's because he wanted me to, in some cases, kind of fail and learn, right? And he would be there for guidance. And so, yeah, that's leadership.
Wow. That's a good place. That's a good place to park it. That's leadership. We got a lot of stuff today. We got gorillas chasing bananas. We got motorcycles. We got 400-pound dudes that love to eat. We got all kinds of things today. We got Allison's Pearl Jam story. So many good stories. Pat, if people want to find out more about you and what you do, where do they find you? And how do they connect?
Yeah, skybluecreative.com is the site. Pat@skybluecreative.com is the email. I'm super active on LinkedIn, Pat Taggart, Taggart. And that's kind of where I play. I'm not a huge social guy, but LinkedIn that's kind of my people. I love to contribute there and love to make new connections. So that's how you can find me.
Right on. Well, Pat, thank you so much for being here today. Compelling conversation. You did not disappoint.
Thank you. It took a couple minutes to sell you in the beginning, and I appreciate the fact that you were like, "Hey, dude, like I don't know about for our crowd, but I appreciate the trust and certainly the invite. This was a lot of fun."
Yeah, thank you so much for being here today. All right, let's get into our end of show ritual. And I always tell guests, especially East Coast guests, I know it's 7:00, so if you got to go. But if you want to hang around for the funny stuff, it takes about 5 minutes. So here we go.
Let's do it.
All right, funny things, just a random collection of shit that I thought was funny. Anybody that has kids or was a kid, because, everybody's gifted and talented these days. Reading way above my grade level didn't get me as far in life as I had hoped.
Yes.
Pat mentioned being a child of the 70s in pre-show, and, I am too. So is Lori. So are a lot of us here. How long ago did your OCD issues begin?
Oh my God, that was me.
Oh,
For those of you that were born after 1990, this is a cord that connected a telephone handset to a telephone receiver, and you would be talking to your friends in the pantry with the door closed so your parents couldn't hear you. And this is what happens when you close the pantry door on that phone cord and it gets a little kink in it.
Or you pull it for too long and wrap it around your finger.
Yes.
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 And then
it was a leash for teenagers.
This one from the Everything Comes Around Again department. Fast Company says startup lets neighbors pool their money to invest in their communities. Some tech bros just accidentally invented taxes. Whoops.
Or an HOA.
Right. Hello. This one is funny. It's called Take a Song Lyric and Turn It into a Statistic. In 78 cases of where there is smoke on the water, there is also fire in the sky.
Oh, how funny. Sounds like an AI, a chat GPT prompt, right?
That's right. That's right. Deep Purple, Smoke on the Water, the first song every guitar player born between 1965 and 1982. That was the first song they learned how to play. This is for my bookie friends. Don't look, but James is here. Did he bring the... Yes, he brought the fucking peach. And sort of staying in that kids from the old days lane. So sad that kids today spend so much time online. When we were kids, we were always outside throwing rocks at one another, smoking, lighting small fires, stealing car hood ornaments, shoplifting, trying drugs. One time I drank gasoline. You know, when everything was safe.
Right?
Yeah. I used to race motorcycles when I was a kid, dirt bikes and, motocross. And we used to build jumps, and then we would lay down in front of the jumps. We would all line up, and then we would jump over each other and take pictures of the bike coming flying off and the gravel in your face. And yeah, super safe. I'm sure my parents would have been so proud.
You have to wind the camera when you were done for the next jump?
Yeah. That's right. The old 126 cartridge camera.
You know it.
All right. Today's Good Feel story is, he does it like he does every week. Steve Hartman.
To Steve Hartman with a story about the power of a promise.
You can't hear him over the crowd, and that may... Basketball seasons come and go, but great coaching lasts forever.
Every week, man. Tears.
Freaking Steve Hartman.
Every week. I mean, Pat, look, compelling videos, 2.5 minutes long. There's a hell of a story there.
Yeah, man. There was no music in that one either. That's when you know it's really good. They didn't even use the cheat code.
Today's semi-quarantine cocktail is called Tippy Toes. It's a riff on the Tiny Dancer cocktail. Gonna need 1.5 ounces of bourbon, 1 Plaza Hotel in New York City, a little bit of Campari, a dash of On Point, ounce of blood orange juice, a little Boré, that's the sort of shuffling back and forth when they're on their toes, a teaspoon of honey, 353 ballet dancers, 2 ounces of club soda, and 1 new world record, a little bit of lemon. This was 47 dancers more than the old record of, I believe, 306, 353 ballerinas on their toes doing the little shuffly thing, new world record. That is today's cocktail. Thank you, Pat, for being here today. Thanks to everybody for being here. Super grateful for you all. Remember, we're going to be out for the next 3 weeks, and then we're back at it again with 3 guests in a row. Take care, everybody. Have a good rest of your night, and go get some dinner.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you had a good time and learned a thing or two at today's happy hour, please share it with your friends. If you want to join our tribe, head on over to skyeteam.cloud/TCB or email us at info@skyeteam.com. That's SKYE team.com. Thanks again, and remember, you've always got friends at the Corporate Bartender.